For the first module, we're going to talk about setting up QuickBooks for the first time. So if you've already used QuickBooks before and you've got it set up, you don't need to go through this, but it might be interesting just to go through it in case there's a few bits that you don't know. So we've got the bit here, it says, what's your business called? So I'm just going to set up a company called Browns Limited. Very original, apparently. What type of business do you have? You can click here. I'm going to put private limited company. I've been in business for 1 to 2 years, and I do professional services. There's different bits: trade services, high street services, online wholesale retailers, landlords, high street retail. All play professional services. If you have been using QuickBooks Desktop and want to bring in your data, you can click here. We won't actually be going through how to do that, but they do have some instructions on how to do it if you want to do that. So then I just click next. And it's going to ask what we want to do. So I want to track our VAT. I don't want to track construction industry taxes at the moment. Don't want to track retail sales at the moment. Do you want to send and track invoices? I'm not going to click manage stock at the moment. I'm not going to track to employees or hours at the moment. I'm just going to click these two. Some of these we will be going through later in the course. One thing that's important to mention is that if you switch on VAT, you can't switch it back off again. It's one of the two things that you can't undo in QuickBooks. There's VAT and multi-currency. The VAT is not too bad. You can switch all the defaults to no VAT if you switch on VAT in error. But it's just one of those things, unfortunately. You can't get rid of it once it's there. So I'm going to click on All Set. And then it'll bring the dashboard up. It should then bring up the details to actually start everything. I don't want to do the 30-second tool because I'm showing you everything, but this is the dashboard. If we click on the cog icon here, it's got all the different details. So account settings, manage users, custom forms, which are things like invoicing, chart of accounts, QuickBooks Lab you don't really need to use. And then they've got things in beta testing. And it's got lists, so all lists, products and services, any reoccurring transactions, attachments, about importing data, budgeting. Some of these are a lot of cool, complicated parts. So I'm just going to click on account and settings now, which is where we can finish up setting up our account. So here you can click on to upload your logo if you want to, which I'm not going to do at the moment. But here we go. It's come up with company profile, which we'll do the first time. So I'm going to set that I live on 1 Rayner Street in a completely fictional place, but okay, now the company phone number, it does get a bit funny with. It's automatically put in the number here that I've put in when I set it up. But it can get a bit funny with the code here. So you need the plus and the country code, then a space, and then the number with the area code without the leading 0 in it. So I'm just going to click on save there. It's saying it wants a county. I'm just going to put London in again. No, London is not a county. Apparently QuickBooks is very American and doesn't know that. It's just loading up again now. Bring all our company settings up for us again. So automatically it'll go into the billings and subscriptions tab. Right, so if we go to company here, we can click on logo. We want to add a logo. The legal name, if your legal name is different to your trading name, you can enter that there. And your company registration number. So if you click on that little bit there, I've got a company number there. I'm just going to put in. The tax form is saying it's a small business corporation, and the professional services. Contact information, I've actually just put our accounts at vickiesbookkeeping.com. You can choose a customer-facing email if that's different. Company phone number, and you can put your website in if you want to. Again, here, address, this is the company address that we signed up with. You can change it as a different customer-facing address, and legal address if that's different as well. You can choose your marketing preferences with QuickBooks and cookie preferences. So then I'm going to click on sales. We'll be going over this a little bit in more detail separately for the invoicing, customizing the look and feel of them. So we're not going to do that right now. Here you've got your preferred invoice terms. So when you're invoicing a customer, what most of your customers are on, whether they're on due immediately, 7-day terms, 14, 15-day terms, 30-day terms, 60-day terms, whatever they're on, you can change it here. There are some ones set up. You can add a new different type on. So if you click add new there, and I'm just going to put default terms. You'll either have due in a fixed number of days or due by a certain day of the month. So if it's due by the 25th of the month, just click save there. Preferred delivery method. So how the invoice go out, print link to send later, or no default. Whether you want the options for shipping on or off. If there's any custom fields you want to put on your invoices. By default, QuickBooks will start with one invoice number and keep going in a numerical order. If you want to start with a specific one, you can click on custom transaction numbers. And then when you go into your first one, you can change that. You can choose to have service date. If you go in and do things on certain days and you need to put that on the invoice. You can have the discount field on there, and you can have a deposit field on your invoice if you wish to show deposits that people have paid you. There's also a bit called progress invoicing. So if you have a particular estimate for a customer that you've sent to them and you're going to be invoicing them in stages, you can click whether you want to be able to create partial invoices from a single estimate. So for example, if you are making, 1,000 pens for them and you want to be able to invoice them in a couple of batches, if some of them are sent before the others, you can click that on there. Messages is a default email message sent with sales forms. If I go into that, it says use greeting dear and then their name, you have a first name or title. In sales form for invoice. So this is what it would come up with, the title. Here's your invoice. We appreciate your prompt payment. Again, this is something we'll be going through a bit more detail in a minute when we're looking at actually creating our invoice design and whether you want to copy yourself in. Okay, so if there's any reminders, if people haven't paid, what the email is going to be again. Email options for the forms, whether you have the PDF attached or not, whether there's a summary in the email or full details of the invoice in the email, and whether you're showing the aging table at the bottom of a statement. So, for example, when you send them a statement, if you want to show how old the particular invoices are in a little table, you can click that on or off in here. Now, if you go down to expenses, it's a slightly shorter form, thankfully. So let's go in here. The show items table on expense and purchase forms. So, for example, if you're a professional services industry and you're not buying in stock to sell, you're not going to need this bit. This is only if you're buying in items for resale that you'll need to put the items on the bills and expenses. So you can keep that off if you're not doing that. But it says track expenses by customer. Is if you're particularly buying things on behalf of customers, you can click that on. And you can make expenses and items billable as well if you do that. So, for example, if you buy, I don't know, your train tickets for doing work for a customer. You can put the items are billable. So when you do an invoice for them, it comes up. That is something we'll be doing in the advanced topics. At the moment, I'm just going to come out of that. And if you want to use purchase orders, probably not going to be something you're going to use unless there's more than one of you in the business. But if you want to be able to create purchase orders for the business and then track it when the invoice comes in, you can click it on here. Again, they've got a default email that's sent with the purchase orders. Finally, you've got the advanced tab. A lot of this we're not going to be going through properly at the moment. Okay, so the first bits we are going to do is the financial year. So, for example, a lot of you, if you're self-employed, will probably use the financial year April to March. Okay, that won't be for all of you, and especially if you've got a limited company, you'll have a different financial year. Your financial year will be the year that your accounts are set up with Companies House. So you can edit that and change that if you need to. Accounting method for most people will be accrual, which basically means that expenses and sales are tracked as they're put on the system, not as the money comes in and is spent. Again, this bit with close the books is probably not something you're going to be using unless there's multiple people using the system. So this is to close it off. If at the end of the year you want to be able to close the books and have a password so that no one can change it once it's done, you can do that. Default tax rate selection, you can use either exclusive of tax, so before tax, inclusive of tax, i.e. after tax, or no VAT. So this is a bit, if you've chosen to track VAT in error and you obviously can't turn it off, you can just click default to no VAT. If otherwise, you can choose if you want it to default to before or after. Come out on that. CIS, we're not going to go through that at the moment. That's to do with the construction industry screen. Making tax digital. This is something we're going to be going through in the VAT section. Tax form, again, we said small business. Enable chart of account numbers. So, for example, if you're doing accountancy, travel, if you want to use numbers instead of having to remember, like type in the category each time, you can choose to switch that on. Classes and locations, we're not going to go through at the moment. That's going to be in one of the advanced topics. Here it says pre-fill forms with previously entered content. So, for example, if I've done one invoice to Jones and Smith, and the next time I want to have the invoice looking pretty much the same, I'll click that to on, so that each time it comes up with the same thing, but you can then override it and amend it. Automatically apply credits means that once I've done a sales credit note for a customer, if I want it to automatically apply to their invoice, I can have it on here. If I don't want them to do it, I can take that off. And bill payments, again, if you want to automatically apply bill payments to invoices that have been done, you can click that to on. If not, you can take that off. Projects is something we're not going to go through in this particular course. Time tracking, again, that's going to be in one of the advanced parts. Currency is the only other thing we really want to look at here, and these a few others in these preferences. So the home currency for most of you be British pound sterling. This is the multi-currency bit. As I say, this is the only other thing that once you turn on, you cannot turn off again. So don't turn it on unless you really want to turn on multi-currency. Date format, number format is normally fine. Here you go, one if duplicate check number is used. A lot of you probably won't use checks, but you can keep that on if you want to. One if duplicate bill number is used. I normally keep that to off because we don't really have bill payment numbers. And sign me out if it's inactive for however long. That's up to you. But that's it. That is setting up your QuickBooks for the first time.